Welcome, everyone. Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, in my continuing series on subtle energy physics, I'm not sure you can call this the new science, but for the backward scientific community, this is a whole new area of study, which is studying the actual informational energetic fields that create the entire universe. These fields are not traditional in nature, they're informational and they're energetic. Now, what does that mean? Well, information means that they hold all information in there. Now, everything is information. So, if you were to take a vitamin C tablet, what is loaded in that informational energetic field is the chemical makeup of that vitamin C. And we're not talking about, well, you could talk about artificial or natural. So in there would be the chemical makeup, but it is not in a physical form. What makes it physical? The energetic factor of it. Now, we have to also, the difference between informationals, let's say you have a book and you have a trigonometry book, mathematics, and you want to learn that. So you have that book in front of you, you open it up, and then you throw it at your face. That's informational. What happened? Nothing. The information is there. But unless it's energetic, meaning you sit down and read it and learn it, it has no value. And this is, of course, what the scientists of the common world say. Now they're saying that things are informational, but there's no transfer of it. And that's where they're saying there's no informational transfer, even though that's what entanglement, physics, and everything else talks about. And they say that particles or whatever it may be is connected in the universe. One connection of it is the same. If something was on Mars and it was on the Earth, it's connected by this field. But nothing is exchanged between it. Which, of course, it makes absolutely no sense at all that there isn't some sort of exchange there. So this is where they stop getting into the real world again. You have to really wonder why. But, we have a dogma that permeates all of this very evil, sick society that is backed up by money. So it controls everything. So the whole idea is that they're only going to go so far with these things, and they're going to stick to the old beliefs until they all die off and somebody else comes new. But they also do a lot of rationalizing, saying that things are actually physical when they're not, trying to state that it fits in with their physics. Now, physics means physical, but that's kind of a primitive way of looking at things. Everything in the universe is informational energetic, and depending on how energetic is, depending on how it manifests. Now, the universe is, just to give it a quick capsule, and I'll be writing a book on this and making some detailed explanations of this, because this is the real science. This is how the universe works, and this is how it works individually in your life. This is what manifesting science is all about, because manifesting informational energetic fields is what creates everything. It creates everything in the subtle world and in the more physical world. So this is how everything works. It's not complicated. Regular science technically has verified this in their own bizarre and ignorant way. Now, I could come up and use all sorts of real terms of what's going on, but that would lose everybody. So we're going to use traditional quantum physics terms so that everybody understands this better. And they kind of link together. It's just that the physicists refuse to go into many different areas that are critically important to them. One of the important areas is the proof of over 150 years of the biophysical, the quote, psychic. And that's a terrible term because it's been made into toilet paper by the opposition. And nothing should be made into toilet paper. It should be looked at as interesting but not proven, which is everything on the planet. Certainly nothing that theoretical physicists have ever made has ever proven to be. And Einstein has basically been a boob. All of his theories have been proven wrong, and they've been made up, and everyone knows it. And he didn't really do anything. Einstein was a semi-retard, highly dyslexic, couldn't get a job anywhere except at this patent office in Switzerland. And then somehow wrote some papers that somebody took note of. It almost looks like it's rigged to me. Why would anybody listen to this patent officer who sat around with nothing to do writing theoretical papers based on other people's work? That's what happened. And this is based on other people's work from the late 1800s. His paper was written in 1912, whatever it was. Somewhere very much like that. So now everybody is grabbed onto him because there's nothing else to grab onto. They have discovered nothing. There's nothing they know about. It's all the same old nonsense. And that's exactly what we have sitting in front of us at this time. It's as simple as that. It's a creative force. And it's a force that makes a perfect creation for that particular environment. This Goldilocks zone that the Earth is in is able to create the kind of species that here. I don't know if this is good or bad, because certainly mankind is evil and corrupt, and there are other civilizations similar to this, and I don't know how many better or not. We hear all sorts of gossip. You're told things, but you can't. Aliens don't lie. I think it's a little ridiculous. So if they're humanoid in any way and they've grown up in a society type structure, I'm assuming that all societies kind of end up the same. Have they went past that? Are they better? Well, I haven't really, you get the namby-pamby, saintish attitude from some UFO contactees that claim, oh, they're perfect. Other ones, they're evil and use you and murder you. All these things have come together in this mishmash of disinformation. We have no idea what extraterrestrials are about. We have, and you can't, even if you meet them or get something from them, which may or may not be real. I mean, these could be actual creation, holographic images that were projected at you for particular reasons. I mean, these are all how these things get so muddled that finding truth is very, very difficult. So we just don't know, and there doesn't seem to be any grateful helping aliens that are doing much of anything. This society certainly has proven that. There's nothing good about humans. We've been at war ever since there's been more than two people. And this is a fact. So as we move into all that, we need to understand how all this works in the bigger picture. So once you get these fields and then you manipulate them down to what is called manifesting science, which is a science that we use to manifest whatever we want in life. And that means the fact that whether this is manifesting spiritual, physical, material, etc., is how these. So that's what you're trying to mold. And anytime you do any kind of advanced work, the best ways of doing things right now, which is neutral to everyone, is using some sort of subtle energy physics machines, otherwise known as radionic type machines, which are based in this complicated type of energy, which interacts with your psions, which is your higher self energy. I don't like to, as I said, I don't like to use the term psychic, but to make sure everybody's clarified, your biophysical, your bioconsciousness is this type of psychic energy, but it's not what we think of as psychic energy. This isn't just a consciousness mind creation. It's complicated of what actually bioenergy is, because it interacts with all of these types of things, with the tachyons, gravitons, etc. It's doing it naturally to a degree, but it's not strong enough to do that much. So you interact with these things and you take these fields that are out there and you try and access them and mold them into what you want. So you could see these fields as something like Play-Doh or clay, and then you mold them through your bio-consciousness, into what you desire. You create, and of course, you're talking more energetically, so you're kind of bringing them into your energetic field. I like to call it magnetism because I think people understand that. So you surround yourself with a particular type of field of energy that you need. Let's say you're sick, so you take these informational energetic fields, you turn them into healing fields, and you surround your body with them, and they attract to you what you need in the energetic and the physical. Maybe you need to take herbs. Maybe you need to take medicines. All of this is part of what you do, and these fields then amplify it. Because you got to remember, nothing works on the physical. When you take anything, whether it's a food or an herb or anything else, you basically break it down into its energetic field. That's what digestion is. And you could say, well, it breaks it down to the chemical. Well, thinking in chemicals and the physical is really kind of caveman thinking. It's really primitive. And of course, you have to start somewhere. And I understand people thinking like that, but we're past that. We're into the energetic now. We've went past the physical. Yes, we understand things are broken down into particular types of energies and substances. That food is broken down into minerals and so forth. But what else is being used there? And as with everything that I talk about and give lectures on, there's third-party verification of everything I've ever said, or at least 98% of it. But, Tesla talked about this as well. Tesla said that once we start studying the non-physical, we will jump leaps and heads above where we are today. And this is so true. But you got to remember that physicists who basically physical, that's what it means. So I'm repeating that for a reason so everybody understands that. Doesn't want to study anything that isn't a rock. Gotta be. But they found out that it's very difficult to detect anything. Things like neutrinos, tachyons, and even gravitons are such weak energy forces that per physics really don't exist. So they don't give them any kind of credit whatsoever, even though they claim they know what gravitons are. They claim they can grab neutrinos and even tachyons to a degree. But the bottom line is that all of this is just way over their heads because they refuse to get into these, even though everything they believe and all their information that they produce is all based on really bogus, me thinky this is right, me went to schoolie, me thinky. So there are a few courageous scientists, physicists out there that are willing to be open to this. And I forget who one of them, there's an Israeli guy who's very open, who's very smart, and who talks about, science should be open to anything. Well, that's right. Yet everybody else is stuck in this fact, and you're not going to get any physicist to even breach the fact that faster than the speed of light is possible. They just don't believe this based on, it's not really Einstein. It was another person. I don't know who that was, but they came up with this theory. All Einstein did was tweak it with his own fraudulent mathematics and so forth. And he unfairly got the credit for everything, being the semi-retard he was, but was pushed out there apparently impressing a very ignorant Dumbademia who got into his particular papers and found them so profound because they didn't understand the original theory. And Einstein, of course, was able to put it into more common language, being a person who wasn't really all that bright to begin with, or at least not bright in mathematics, or I should say traditional education. They thought he was a retard as a child. Now, I like Einstein. I think he has had some interesting statements. He's got interesting viewpoints, but, he got stuck into something that made him famous and he couldn't get out of it. And wasn't man enough to come out there and say, well, this is just a theory. Maybe there are other things. And of course, we've all proven the fact that you can go faster than the speed of light. It's pretty much in real scientific communities accepted as fact. Especially the higher operating ones that have created anti-gravity, and we have ships that can travel faster than the speed of light right now. This is pretty much commonly known out there, but not commonly accepted. And of course, when you're in a institution which is highly oppressive, like the scientific community out there, you're never going to get anywhere because they will not do that. They don't hire people that think different. They want a clone in there, and they keep, when they bring in research people, you're not going to bring in somebody that disagrees with you. You're going to bring in somebody that agrees with you. And that goes against all really proper scientific thought. But let's move on to here as well to get into the different realities that go on here. So these are what you surround yourself with. So what you're trying to do, and it's really not I use the term magnetic because people understand that. We don't live in an electromagnetic world. That's what your regular scientists tell you. That is only one aspect. And this is what we base everything on. We base electricity and other things, but advanced societies didn't use oil and didn't create this they grabbed energy out of the cosmos. There are different types of fields of energies out there. And all we look for is the electromagnetic, which is very primitive. It's the kindergarten energy that's out there. Now, advanced informational energetic forms are not electromagnetic in nature. They're this strange occulton, and they don't have that kind of aspect to them. Now, this can be found out what this is, and they're moving towards this because they have to anyway, because everything else is a dry hole. So they keep moving towards the non-physical, and every time they discover something, it kind of has mass. Now, mass means it can be measured in a traditional fashion. So they all kind of say that. But they're being disingenuous because it really doesn't have mass. They've somehow detecting something that's there. So just like all the other stuff, the so-called God particle, etc., basically they detected the trash or the feces from this that has been detected here that they want to call something from it. So because they're still looking for this physical, they have to look for the non-physical energetic and start measuring energy fields and so forth. So, I mean, that's when all the breakthroughs will come through. But that's what you use. You're not using something physical. That's why when we start using things like radionic instruments, using manifesting energy cells, well, we're generating these kind of fields. You then draw the fields into you for whatever need that is, and you create this magnetism or a drawing to you of this particular energy, which is really not magnetic in nature whatsoever. I mean, there's nothing electromagnetic spectrum of it. That's another fallacy, and a lot of people believe that if you don't have if it's not in the electromagnetic spectrum, somebody wrote a book on this, some scientist over his Popeye dessert, or corn or whatever they make their chicken, stating that if it's not electromagnetic, it doesn't exist. Well, this is the kind of stupidity we get into. We don't know anything. So, and the one aspect that they completely miss, even if they get into the energetic, is the levels of energetic information. What have these occultons and psions created? Meaning the interaction with some other energy, an intelligent energy that is taking the Play-Doh energy and molding it into something. And we're not necessarily talking physical molding here, even though that can happen down the line. So what happens is that you get alchemists, priests, etc., ancient scientists, people who really knew what was going on, because they didn't have a bunch of toys and money to live in a delusional reality. They created other things, God forms, and so forth, spirits. All these things are now interacting with it. So now ghosts can use informational energetic fields. How do ghosts knock things down? How do ghosts or poltergeist, noisy ghosts, what a primitive term that is. But the whole idea is that how do they do it? Well, they're able in their form to grab a certain type of informational energetic fields or coltons and form them into them manifesting or moving things. Even though they're not physical themselves, they can interact with the physical, and this is a whole nother aspects of occultons and everything else, to do things. So this is what science completely ignores, even though there's been proof of contact now with the dead. There is a research organization done by top educated professionals out of Arizona. I always forget her name, who has proven that you can contact the dead, or those who have departed, because dead sounds so permanent. Well, not. They've moved along. And they can get information from them of value, particularly apparently medical information. You can't get the lottery numbers, and there's reasons for this, which I won't go on here into, because that kind of upsets the entire balance of the world. So if everybody gets the lottery numbers, it changes power structure. So generally, you can't do stuff like that. That's why it's so difficult to get numbers with remote viewing and other things psychically, because this is part of a bizarre conflict in this energy. But they are more than happy to help with healing in certain other areas. So she has pretty much proven this with a long time study. And this is a very, apparently she was somehow able to get money for this. She is a qualified Oh, she's not qualified. She didn't come from the Goofball Institute of Lack of Knowledge.
So we don't follow her.
You know, they always want to do this, just like the SRI scientists who are highly accredited, Russell Targ and Puthoff and all the people they work with. I mean, these people went to top schools. Russell Targ basically was one of the developers of the laser and everything else, and he worked in those industries. So these are very technical people. Oh, but he was kind of stupid because Daddy ran a bookstore that sold metaphysical books, and he had an interest in that, and that means that he is dumb and prejudiced. What are you talking about? I think the fact that most physicists and scientists play golf and tennis and watch the Kardashians to be insulting in general. Whatever their hobbies are, whatever they do is insulting. It's stupid. Now, for someone to investigate the greatest mystery of all time, which is the non-physical, which moves into the spiritual, is the ultimate course of study for anybody. And there's certainly reams, millions, tens of millions, trillions, I guess we could probably get into, of everybody's personal experiences and documentations talking about all sorts of, quote, non-physical apparitions, from all the religious books that everybody claims to believe in. So, that's pretty much 90% of the population believes in some sort of religion. This is what should be studied. What happened here? What is this energy? What is going on here? So we need to integrate that, which they totally ignore as well. So even if they get into the more scientific fields of the gravitons, the neutrinos, and tachyons, which there's huge study in particularly neutrinos out there, because this is everywhere. Now, if we could tap into that energy, we could do anything with it. The problem is because it's so subtle and so non-physical, and they're looking for physical things. Can we put a screen up and catch it like fish? We can use a net. So this is how they're looking at it in a primitive aspect. So you have to design things that are picking up non-physical matter, and they don't want to jump into this because basically they know nothing about it. Nobody wants to say they're stupid, especially if you've trained all your life in a field. So, I don't want to deal with that. I know nothing about that. And this is what everybody does. And I've had this problem with interviewers. They don't want to interview you because they know nothing about it, and you're smarter than them, and they are really egomaniacs. So reporters, interviewers, they don't want to talk to somebody who's articulate, who knows what they're talking about. They want to talk to boobs or something they have an idea about. But this, they have no idea. They don't even know what questions would I ask. Well, that's a good question because you don't know nothing. So you better turn over your interview to the person you're interviewing, and this generally isn't what reporters are taught. But they know nothing, and where do I get the book on that? And there is no book on that. Hopefully I will have one soon, but this is all part of the process. So all of these fields, these informational energetic fields out there. And again, remember that information means that there's something there, but it's non-active. Informational means, energetic means that it does something. So that's the difference. So an informational field is virtually worthless. But this is what they're claiming happens with the instantaneous transfer of information to something else. It is information, an instantaneous transfer. But a lot of people wouldn't even say that you cannot transfer information. It's just kind of connected by some sort of gum. The universe invented bazooka gum, and they stuck things together. I learned that at MIT. So the whole idea is this is how these things work out there for the understanding of what's going on. So we have to get past this, and this is nothing new. We've fallen back into the physical because now we've got technology to detect a lot of things. So instead of going ahead, now in the past people were looking at the non-physical. And they were going into the fact of how this is what really controls everything. But modern science put a damper on that, pretty much put a top on that pot and closed it personally because, now we can look at stuff in there. We can't look at the non-physical fields in what we're doing with the technology we have, so it doesn't exist. So as long as we do that, we're never going to get the core to everything. But of course, we're living in a very evil, mentally disturbed society where answers sit on a table in front of you. You bring in the professionals and they just take their hands or their arms and they just scrape everything off the table. And this is not the answer. What do you mean all this works? No. We want something. What are you talking about? We need this now. We need energy. People are dying. No. We're going to look for something else. What? That's what we have right now because we have the answers to everything. What I'm talking about is the ultimate answer to everything, which is dealing with the actual energies that create everything. Because energies go from these and I could list them, and it's a complicated process of it. But to give it a basic understanding, you have this informational energetic field that's kind of neutral. There's nothing in it. It's an occulton. It then interacts with the intergalactic psions, and psions also get down to the fact of your personal psions, which is just an energetic field. So the informational field connects with the energetic field, which you produce and other things produce in the universe, and physical matter comes from that. And the occultons are seeking out physical information to put into the occulton to make it have a value. So that's how it works. And of course, that's what you need to do as a manifesting scientist, is that you connect with that. Now, we are getting, as I said, we are not researching. I know exactly what has to be done. We are perfecting. And I've recently announced something that we've known for a long time, which is the use of gravitons, neutrinos, and tachyons. And we're combining these kind of into one single energy, which we've been able to create an antenna for. Now, you don't make these, people tend to use terms like generators. And a generator is when you make something. An accumulator is when you accumulate things, meaning it's like scavenging. It's the difference between being a farmer, you plant a seed and it grows, and a scavenger. So you go out into the fields and you pick this stuff up. So that's what an accumulator is. And that's what you do with prana, you do with orgone, and lots of other energies. You accumulate them. So you don't generate them. Because how do you generate gravity? Well, it may come to being able to do that someday. But we're not looking into that. We're just trying to now perfect these energies, which we've already done at a certain degree, create an antenna that draws these energies in at a very, very minute scale, by the way, because if you were to harness gravity, neutrinos, and tachyons at the highest possible level, you'd probably have the ultimate destroying the planet energy. This would be the ultimate antimatter, so to speak. Which would create it. So you can't draw those in. So you're drawing a tiny bit, but you don't need much when you come to what you're trying to use it for. And of course, we want to bring this up to a good, powerful level that fits the purpose. More is not necessarily better. Too much energy is hurtful. I mean, this has been proven in using crude Hertzian fields in the human biosystem, is that when you use tiny bits of it, your biosystem loves it. You ramp this up and it doesn't love it. It creates an entire protection against it. So people I want more powerful, like I knew this idiot who was into multi-wave oscillators. We got to make it more. You don't need more energy. Your body can't handle that. Only a boob thinks that way. It's like everything in life. Is 2 pounds of chocolate cake better than a slice? Well, not really. A slice is better. 2 pounds of it makes you sick. It screws up your blood chemistry. It's horrible for you.
Well, what do you mean? It tastes good.
Well, that's the kind of idiot thinking it is. What you want from chocolate cake is chocolate cake. You don't need 2 pounds of it to enjoy it and get your fill of it. So this is what people are saying, more and more and more. This is the type of thing. It's not true. You need a defined, perfect energy that you can assimilate and is good for your particular purpose. So it's like anything, if you have too much of it. I mean, I've mentioned this with vitamin C before. People want to take all this vitamin C. Well, that has to go through your liver and kidneys. So basically, if you take too much of even a positive supplement, it's bad for you. And this kind of stuff tears up your organs to a degree. So you want to take just enough that your body can handle properly. And if there's a little too much, well, that's okay. A little too much is okay because your body's going to kick it out. But to kick it out weakens you. So this is the whole thing that's talked about in ancient literature of non-orgasming, is the fact that your body, when you orgasm, has to start creating all those energies. You're releasing core energy to begin with, and then you have to build up all these energies again. You have to produce semen. So this weakens your body. And you have to use a lot of energy to make semen. So this is the whole idea of understanding what is good and what's not good in terms of the energetic world. So it's all about refining and defining and developing. I've discovered everything, but I don't have it developed to the next stage that it needs to be. But we're getting close, and each product that we bring out is better than the next one, produces greater energy, and manifests faster. But you have to understand that, and that's why you also have to release the fact that, in the back of your mind, you believe what society has brainwashed you. So if you pick up products that go against society's thinking, you tend to block their energy. This is some of the process that goes on, which is part of the uncrossing and getting to a stage of gnosis. If you're in the stage of gnosis, you find what works. Not what society says works, not that what some scientist says works, but what works in gnosis, in truth. What is a universal truth? And there's many of these. And you have to be aware of that even subconsciously, or things cancel. We have this all the time. People are canceling out stuff they don't believe in it. So one of the major factors with success science is you have to believe in what you're doing. Now, you don't fool it. I'm not really a positive thinking kind of guy. I went through that stage very early in my life, in my late teens, and it doesn't really work well. But, it does direct you. But one of the problems with positive thinking is that they blame you for failures. Well, it failed because you didn't believe it 100%. There was a 1% doubt. And that's how they play these systems with you. Well, I'm afraid life is not that simple, and you have to deal with a lot of other people too. You certainly want to believe in what you're doing because this triggers higher energies to come to you and assist you. And that's what believing in something does. It opens up channels to bring in non-descriptive, non-known empowerments to work in your life. I hope everybody got that. It's a very profound concept I just gave you. It does not make things manifest. It will open up. So believing in something in a boring, stupid way, that, I'm going to get a raise at my job and I'm going to concentrate on it. Well, you're never going to get a raise at your job. They don't give raises. That means you failed. You didn't do it. You're the loser. No. You're the loser because you believed in something that is not proper to manifest. You have to always leave the door open of manifestation. It can come from anywhere. And most of us have very limited areas of manifesting. So we have to make sure that all the doors are open so it can come and you have to understand. So if you're walking down the street, I don't have any money. How am I going to make this? And a car goes by and an envelope is thrown out of that, slams in front of you while you're walking. And it happens to be filled with money. And you're too busy thinking, what is this? Screw it. There's some junk on the floor. And walk by it. Well, this is what happens in life all the time. You have to pay attention. What is that there? What has just come to me? Because it's not going to come to you directly in a lot of ways. So it'll come out of the blue, and we have to be open to this. Well, where is it going to come from? And we can't be looking this straight line of what's going on, because life is not that straight line. So if it was going to work like that, if life was going to work straight line, then you really wouldn't have to empower it. Well, it's going to happen anyway. So these are all the things that we have to have account. So we are building on this. We will be introducing this new energy cell very soon, which will be attached to many things. We're going to build this into our manifesting energy cells as well. We're going to add these different energies into these cells as we produce them in the coming years. So this will be another hybrid, along with special high-level radionic rate, which is number symbols for something. It could be for anything, and that's the beauty of radionics, is you don't have to pick something that's known. You can get a rate for tachyons. Well, what's the rate for tachyon? Well, you can dial that in. And of course, you have to be a skilled operator. You have to be using quality sensitive equipment that can not only pick up these energies, but can also generate them. And we're going to show you new techniques that we have for actually picking up information as well. And this is one of the problems of getting this type of proper rate, because proper rates are something that you have to get. Now, this takes skill and training and everything. Now, everybody wants to be a fifth, But you're going to remember that these people have went to school for 8 to 10 years. They're in an environment every day talking to other people. Just imagine how much power you could have if you were around radionic and manifesting scientists all day. If you were paid to do that, if you were paid to teach that, just imagine that you're totally imbued with all of this coming in every day. That you came to a place, that's all you talked about, you built stuff, you worked on it, you went to lunch and discussed it, you did all the things. Just imagine where we would be if we had that kind of supportive environment. But you also have to remember that there are major factors against this. So anybody who's on the proper path has been always persecuted. And that includes all the scientific people as well. They will go after you and destroy you. So it's more complicated than just having a different thinking. And of course, there is no kind of communication between the bigger subtle energy believers out there, interested people out there. The more academic people don't give you any credit because you don't spell that word right. It don't look like a crappy university journal. So they're prejudiced right off the bat, and they don't want to talk to anybody. And so, I get this all the time, of course. If you have something different, instead of saying, gee, this guy's got something different, maybe we should talk to him. That's what I do all the time. No, they ignore you, as has happened with Bengtsson's Dutch organization, who instead of trying to work with somebody who knows what they're doing, just disregards you. And then, of course, guess what? They produce garbage. So the whole idea is that that's the problem because they don't understand the physics behind it. And this is credible physics. It blends into regular physics to a high degree. Because I like to figure it out. Well, they found this. They think they're right. You've got to be careful. You don't want to be caught in their dogma. On the other hand, there is a certain, they have broken things down to a degree. So why not use the work other people have done and figure it out better? Especially since you don't have the resources to do it yourselves. Everything takes not a lot of money, but it takes enough money to put people together to do consistent daily research that they don't have to run businesses or work at the post office or whatever they're doing. They have to spend their full time doing that. And you got to understand that's going to take at least $60,000 per person because that's what it takes to live now. So you need, for every real researcher that you want, a dedicated, intelligent person is going to cost you $60,000. If you want 10 people, that would be $600,000. But, that's not a lot of money in this day and age. It's amazing what people fund on these idiot fund me things to get money that they need, including for worthless toys, backpacks, other things, hundreds and hundreds of that, 500 millions. So that's out there. So it's not that difficult. But in terms of how much money you need. But it is difficult to raise that. And there are people that will stop you. And that's the other problem with all of this. There's always been people on the other side that are out to get you. Simple as that. Everyone should be paranoid. Paranoia is a normal state of existence because it's true. So it's as simple as that. So as we do all of this, we need to understand the bigger picture here. But certainly these are not things that cannot be overcome to a certain degree. But if you need to have full-time people working on these things, and of course that's what our Patreon is all about. I waste my time tracking packages, talking to people about basic stuff that isn't important, that is business related. Well, the bottom line is that we don't need to do that. I need to work on it. So it's like taking an expert in anything and having them bring packages to the post office. What's the point of that? It's a waste of that person's time. That's the point of that. So this is all that has to go in the bigger picture. But this is the reality that's out there. Now, to a large extent, science won't state it, but what I've just stated is pretty much understood by the scientific community. They just refuse to go into the energetic reality of life, that everything starts as energy and then turns into the physical. They don't believe that. They believe everything is physical and turns into energy or some quasi-understanding of that concept. So this stops us from moving ahead. We do now know, we've went through the physical, we understand how chemicals combine together, make up other chemicals, etc. And this is what is explainable on that level. But nothing is explainable in its physical content only. Something is created when the physical content is put together. H2, well, H2O is water. So the whole idea is this is when things combine together. So you're combining two together. And what is that? That's hydrogen and oxygen. And but what is it? What does that produce? Where did that come from? Where's the energetics behind that? And if you manipulate the energetics, you can form that into anything. So that's the plain, simple fact of it all. And it takes support, and there are lots of people that don't want to support you. There's a lot of people, of course, while our YouTube channel has a loyal following, we have a tiny following. But I'll tell you right now, all the people that are looking for information, whether they're radionic or physicists, etc., are all listening to my particular lectures. It's amazing when you see what they do later, or even within a week or two after posting a lecture here, that they are doing that. They are using information that I have just given out. So believe me, people are paying attention to what's going on here at a much higher level. And people who want information about Satanism, occultism, subtle energy physics, radionics, they're all here, baby. And they're all listening to what I got to do, and they're all applying it, which is why I don't give out too much information much anymore. They're all out there. People who want good research on satanic cults, Michael Aquino, the son of Sam, they're all there, and they're all listening and following and investigating. You know, it's interesting that the minute I talk about something, you can find some of these so-called investigators that are now doing their little investigations on that with their unqualified, boobish people. So this is what happens, and this is the reality out there. So we need to understand this as a way of understanding. I don't know if we want. I hate to call it the new physics, but really it is the new physics. Subtle energy physics is where it's all at. What energetic informational fields create all matter? When we then manipulate those fields, we then can create anything we want on a physical, sub-physical, spiritual, level. It doesn't matter. Once you have the raw ingredients, you can make anything with it. And this is where we come into the actual perfection process, which I'm working on right now. It's not research. I know what they are. Now I have to perfect it. How do I make better and better antennas to grab this type of energy and move it into objects or into your consciousness, into your psychic, into your third eye, into your chakras? Well, how do we make better tools to do that? And you have to do it in a very advanced way. This is not common energy. So what we're coming at is things that are kind of really weird. They are not electromagnetic. I'm moving away from wires and metals and all this stuff. Matter of fact, wires and metals and all these things tend to hurt the process. These are earth-based, or they are a particular substance. And while some of it is good, when you use this entirely, it actually restricts the flow of this non-electromagnetic. Now, you use metals because they transfer electromagnetic energies quite well, particularly the higher. But what is not understood, particularly with gold and silver and copper as well, but the silver, platinum, etc., all these grab these non-electromagnetic fields at very high levels as well. So these do, but there are other things that work better because we're getting more into the frequency, the vibrations, just as when you transfer huge amounts of information, they're not using wires. They're not using big, giant wires that carry more electromagnetic energy. They're using photons. They're using vibrational. This is where lasers are so important. Have really been running the world for many years now. That is ignored because nobody knows anything about lasers. Well, I do, and I've been using them for over 25 years now. And now you can get good lasers very inexpensively, which we couldn't do in the past. I wanted to use these purplish blue lasers 20 years ago. Yeah, they're $8,000. Who's going to buy a unit for $8,000? Well, you're not going to find many. So now we can get these for ridiculously low prices. This is the great thing about modern society, and to a certain extent, having China out there making everything, is that they can make stuff cheap. And there's a benefit to the rest of the world for that to a degree. So This is very important because they're not using. So we're getting all away from that. So if you build a machine and it's just got copper wires and other things, and I was using gold fill wires 25 years ago. I was using lasers, red lasers, 25 years ago. I was gold plating my copper plates that went through it to get that aspect, and these machines worked phenomenally. And it was a lot of work to do all this stuff to give you those touches, but it's the touchers. I was using gold-filled wire. Now, this is wire, copper wire that they put a little gold in. Well, this increased the effectiveness of the unit dramatically. So these are all the little things you have to do, but we don't want to stay in the electromagnetic. What transfers energies that are not electromagnetic at the highest possible levels? Well, photons. And this is nothing new. When you use and of course, I don't know if people quite understand any of the way that you transfer energy using is that you take a laser and you shoot it down a plastic string, so to speak. And this will then carry the energy to where you want it. That's the technology that's been in existence. I don't know, it could be 40, 50 years now. Fiber optics. That's what fiber optics is. But you need to have the fiber. You have the optics, the laser, but then you need something to carry it through your unit. Now, I made these fiber optic units 40 years ago. And that's what we used to make. We moved away from that because of several different problems, but we are getting back into that area and defining it at a much stronger level. But these are fiber optic based units, are just amazing. So that's how you carry lots and lots of information. Now, that's the other problem is that, your electromagnetic transfer of large data is very difficult and very limited. There's just so much you can do with all this stuff. You need to find another medium to do it. People are trying to do that with quantum computers, etc. But all this stuff, when we start to get into the quantum computing world, is very complicated, very expensive, and has to be done at ridiculously. I think you have to freeze things below zero and all the things they do to make this really complicated technology that's super expensive. And I guess maybe that'll turn into actual individual users in the future who everything starts off huge, big, and complicated, and then they figure out some way to make it user serviceable for the average person. But we'll have to see how all that goes. But in all this stuff, it should be all based on photonic energy. You got to transfer things through that because you're using bioenergetic energies. These are bioenergies. They are not electromagnetic. So what captures, amplifies bio energies? Well, we have those with our special amplifiers and transmitters. And also is the reason why we're not really big into dialing in machines, because people can't do that, right? And you don't really need that. Once you have the energy in the form of a radionic rate or a number sigil, it's a number representation of a particular energy form, well, you've got it all. You don't need anything past that. The actual figure, putting together that in a dial that goes through particular wires is not really doing much. That's the primitive aspect of it. You're creating an energy grid, which are dials and these wires that then take that information and amplify it and then send it to the particular person. But that's a very primitive and poor way of doing it. Once you have the number code for that energy, otherwise known as a radionic rate, all you've got to do is send that number code to the target, and this will then start doing it. Because what you're doing is you've created an informational energetic field for a specific purpose, whether that's helping somebody heal or helping them financially, and that energy then goes in there and they vibrate that, and good things are attracted to them. Now, all this is very variable because it depends on, well, how much problems do you have? Is that solvable in that way? If someone is very, very ill, well, is this someone that this is going to work on at this particular point? And is that the proper informational energetic field? Maybe you need a different one, and this is where skilled professionals come in. Kind of like a doctor. I mean, the fact you go in there and say, well, I took this medicine, it doesn't work. Well, we got other medicines that do that. Let's see if this one works. And of course, that means change your rate. This is where things get very complicated. Life is not 1, 2, 3 and interesting, but and instantly work. So you have to work on all of this. And what you have to understand is that these things are extremely variable, and it takes very educated, professional, skilled operators. Now, we try and get over all this by giving you the finest equipment we can give you out there at a reasonable rate, and then we create the special rates you need for all these things in your life. And ideally, it would be best to have these created for yourself personally instead of using neutral rates. Well, here's a money rate, and it has this energy. But your money rate is going to be different than the one that is just general money. And the one that's more for you is going to work better. This is how things get very complicated. Not necessarily complicated. I know exactly what has to be done, but if you do this for people, it costs a lot of money. So the whole idea is you're going to have individual rates done, then it's going to cost you X amount of money, and there's always this area that is involved. And you may have to get several rates for different things to break through in different areas of life. We talked about the 3 most important energies you have to have, and these are things you have to look at. So nothing is just click, 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 and it's done. Life is complicated, yet there's always answers to everything, but it's not easy answers, and not everything works for everybody. You have to work with someone, fine-tune them for their particular problem, and then you have to find out, well, what are all these other things? So it's difficult, depending on the situation. Then people have all sorts of different problems that have been going on most of their life. And I get this frequently. I've been cursed for 10 years. I've got this problem for 20 years. Well, you've got a huge blockage in front of you. You've got Mount Everest in front of you, and you're going to have to start hammering away at that stuff and pulling yourself up to get to the top of it. It's not going to be easy when you have years of that. But there are answers to everything, and every process that you make, every hammer you hit against Everest is another dent you've made to improve your life. And that's what you have to do. And we have so many things in life that are problems now that we need new answers. We've tried everything else, and it doesn't work. And we have to now try and manifest things for ourselves personally and find out how all of that works. So that's a lot of what's going on out there and what has to be done in general. So it's not a case of searching. We are not researching. We are perfecting. We are developing. So it's not really research and development that needs to be done. It's development. I know exactly what has to be done. I've been working with these energies for 50 years now, and I know exactly what they are. I've tapped into all the greats that have discovered things, from Abrams to Hieronymus to Tesla. I mean, all the information has been there. This is not necessarily anything new. What's new is that nobody's applied it properly into their daily lives. So all these free energy people who are basically bogus, who never seem to achieve anything even after 50 years of work, and quite a bit of support, by the way. They never seem to. But, they've been infiltrated, and there's many top people who you think are working in that field who are nothing but CIA spies that went in there and actually stopped the free energy, and may have even been involved in the murder of some. So the whole idea is that all of this is how we're living in this complicated world. It's not about science finding something out. It's not about working with other people. They are against you. They are not seeking answers. They are seeking corporate answers that fit into their dogma. That's called the death of science, and that's where we're at. So hopefully this has been very enlightening. You kind of get the picture. That's the real physics out there. That's how the universe works, and we continue to develop what may be simplistic and even primitive at a certain level, is touching into the fabrics of all creation, getting actually into the creative energy of the universe. And this is just very exciting, and it's there to be developed by people who have the background to do it. And it really just requires a very minimal support. But that's what's out there. That's what's happening. It's exciting. The world is very complicated. We keep getting thrown back and forth, kind of banged around in a box, so to speak, with pandemics and wars that are affecting everybody in this world. And this always disrupts everything. But, all of this is planned to keep things disrupted. And there is all sorts of things going on right now because of this wars, including the lazy, do-nothing Europeans who are now pouring billions of dollars into armaments to prop up their fake societies that really can't do anything. And the only thing that can do that is government spending. But how do you do that? Well, you do that by buying weapons, and that's the way it goes. So this is the big game that goes on. With all of this, you have to wonder what's going on. The Russians, like everything else, claim to have all these advanced psychotronic weapons. It doesn't seem like it's working too well for them. But, the bottom line is that there's a lot of boobs there, and I don't know how much of that stuff is being applied, if any. There's the primitive way thinking that force is what does everything, and it does. In the end, force of blowing something up really does make a change. But there are subtler ways to do things, and you have to wonder what's going on there. So all of that is something that the world has to look at and so forth. But it is an exciting time if we can get over this particular problem. This problem is something of development. It's not research. So hopefully that's gotten out there very clear to everyone. Until next time.